Hey, this is Nikki with Noodle Sews, and I want to show you a really fun way to take a panel and turn it into a great little trick-or-treat bag. You know, Halloween's almost here, or maybe there's other things you need to make a little tote bag for, but Halloween's almost here, and I have some little grandbabies that could use some trick-or-treat bags that are special and unique from everyone else. Now, a couple fun things that you might want to grab before you sew this is maybe some glow-in-the-dark thread. That would be a lot of fun to add a little flair to it. Also, you're just going to find a fun panel out there that you have, maybe one in your stash. It doesn't even have to be Halloween. It could be something that's a favorite for that kiddo. But what I've got together is a Cori Dantini panel that I love, and I have this fun little square I cut out. Now on the Cori Dantini ones, they are a little bit different size. So I'm going to put the measurements down below so you know what to do. But this one right here, I cut this out to 10.5 inches wide by 12 inches long. So 10.5 wide by 12 long. I cut my back panel the same and my lining the same size. All four pieces are 10.5 wide, 12 inches long. Then I also cut out 1-inch squares out of the corners, but I don't do it quite yet. First, I'm going to put fusible fleece on the exterior pieces, not the lining, just the exteriors. This is a bag they're not going to use tons. They're going to use it every so often, or it's going to become a favorite and they're going to use it to carry small things. It's not a big tote bag, so we're not going to go over the top with all kinds of interfacings and fusible fleece on this bag. I want to keep it really simple. So great panel, some lining fabric, it's all you need. Really, not very much. So for lining, you're only going to need about 3/8 a yard of fabric for the lining, and then you need something for the handles. So we're going to make handles too. So I'll give you the measurements here, but again, they're below. So the handles are 4 by 21, okay? What I did is cut a 4-inch strip with the fabric, cut it apart on the fold. Then inside of it, I am going to put a little strip of interfacing, 1 inch by 20, because that's how wide interfacing normally is 20 inches. So I just went by that. Now you'll see it goes a little longer. I'm going to trim these off after I get done sewing them. Okay, so we're going to start with the handles first. So first thing we're going to do on the handles, we've got that 4 by 21 inch strip. We're going to go to the iron and we're going to press it in half. That's how we start. We just press it in half. Then after we press it in half, I go ahead and line up my piece of interfacing right along that fold. Okay. Then I fold my piece back over in half and give it a quick little press. Then I go ahead and fold one side in over the interfacing all the way down, and I press it at the iron. Okay, this is kind of what it looks like when I'm pressing it. I've got it one side that folded in over the interfacing and I'm pressing it. Then I fold in the other side. So they're kind of going into each other. I've already pressed it, so it should behave here and just do it. Okay, so I've got it all folded inside of itself. When you pop it open like that, I didn't put any products on it or anything else. So then what I'm going to do is either use some Wonder Clips or something just to kind of hold this together so that I can sew it. So I've got those 4 layers there. It turns out to be about 1 inch wide, which is what we want. And these are just for some simple handles. So what I'm going to do is after I press this, I'm going to top stitch these handles, and I have 2 handles here already ready to go. Now in my machine, what I have in my machine, I'm going to show you a different color just so you can see it up close. This right here is a sulky 12 weight petite. So these are sulky petites, okay? They're 12 weight. So what I'll do is when I use this on a bag or anything, it gives a bigger stitch because that thread is thicker. So I'm going to extend my stitch length out to 3.0. Now one thing I've kind of had fun with this has been using this on binding. A lot of fun because I get a nice thick stitch and I kind of show off that binding a little bit more, draw attention to it. You don't want to draw attention to it, don't use a 12 weight, just use your regular 50 weight thread that you normally use in your machine, which is what most people use generally for piecing. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and go with this, and I just have a regular 50 weight in my bobbin. So I've got the 12 weight on top, I don't have it in my bobbin, and I have a 50 weight in the bottom. Okay, and I'm just going to sew this, I didn't turn on my machine, to sew this with a 3.0 stitch length. Okay, so I'm going to turn my stitch length up to a 3.0, and I'm just going to sew about 1/8 of an inch from the edge all the way down, and I sew on the side with the fold first. That way I get that secure and nothing shifts. And then I'll go and sew the other side. Now, because I left myself that extra space on both sides of my interfacing, I'll be able to go back and trim this up to the exact length I want these straps. Okay, like I said, we started at 4 by 21, so I'm going to actually cut these down to 21 inches. Yes, the interfacing doesn't go the entire way, but most of that's going to be taken up in the seam allowance anyway, and it reduces a little bit of the bulk. Where I really want that interfacing is to make sure it's in the part where that little hand's holding it all the time, because that's where it's going to want to roll up if I don't have interfacing in there. So I'm just sewing this all the way down. And because I have that 12 weight in there only on the top thread, I don't want to flip it over when I go to do the other side. I'm just going to rotate it here, pull it out a little ways, and start heading back down. Okay, but you'll see it makes a nice thick stitch. I love it. I think it's just really accentuates the colors and stuff. I'm using kind of golden yellow color. So the back, it's just a fine little stitch there. But when I put the handles on, I'm going to make sure this part is sticking out. So I'm going to go all the way down on this side. And I have to do this with both handles, because we're putting 2 little handles on here. Now you can use this with any panel. You don't have to just use it on a Halloween panel. You can find any panel that has roughly a 12-inch square and use these measurements. I actually have some yardage that I just love that had Care Bears wearing little Halloween hats, and I'm going to make one of the little bags out of that too. So you can use these same measurements and just use regular fabric that's not a panel. All right, so I'm going to go down the next one. Again, I'm sewing on the fold side first on this second strap. Problem I have is I look up at the camera for a moment, and then sometimes I kind of scoot. So I'm going to make a little channel with my fingers to try to help me keep it where I want it lined up. Now my strap is tending to wiggle here. So I'm just going to put a pin in it here. It's just trying to shift a little bit. So try to force it back where I want it. I put a pin there just to hold it for a second. It really wants to shift on me. And that happens, and I'm not too worried about it. There's no raw edges sticking out, so it's not a problem. Okay, I'm going to rotate and go back the other way. And that 3.0 makes a nice bigger stitch. Now in my machine, while I'm using the petite 12 weight thread from Sulky, I do have a 100/16 needle in, and I have that in just because I want that bigger eye on my needle, so that that thread feeds really nice. I love it for top stitching. Use it so many times. It's really fun. And I have a whole rainbow of colors. Okay, so I have both my straps made. So like I said, we're going to trim these straps down to 20 inches. I'm sorry, 21 inches. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my ruler. I folded my strap in half. I'm going to take a wonder clip right here. Clip it on my ruler. I've got the fold at the top, and half of 21 is 10.5. So I'm just going to go down to the 10.5, but I clipped it on the wrong side of the ruler. It happens. Okay. Clip it back on here. This is just one way. You can do it so many ways. But when I'm sitting there at my sewing machine, I don't want to get up and go over my cutting mat and stuff. I can do it right here at the thing. So I'm going to just go down on my strap to the 10.5. Okay, and I'm just going to cut across with scissors. Yep, with scissors. So I'm just going to find the 10.5 and cut across. Okay. Now, I have two choices. For my other strap, I could just use this as a base and cut this other one, or I can do the same process. So I'm going to do the same process for it, just to show the same thing twice. Okay, so I fold it in half, the raw edge matching up. The fold goes up here at the top. Put my wonder clip there to hold it. I do zippers this way too, all the time. Okay, find my 10.5 inch mark, grab my scissors, and give it a snip. since I'm cutting through multiple layers. I'm cutting through basically 8 layers at once, but you'll see. See, I just went to the 10.5 inch mark and gave it a cut. Okay, so there's my straps. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. Before I forget, I'm gonna change my thread. I will come back to this thread to top stitch the bag at the end, but to piece the rest of the bag, I'm just gonna put a neutral thread in. Okay, back to just a regular 50 weight. I'm not gonna change my needle for this part. We're making this as a quick, easy project. Getting through stuff in our stash and using it. Okay, that's my thing. I love to use my scraps up and work through different projects. So that's what I'm doing here. I just grab this panel, everything I'm using, the lining, the strap fabric, all that is out of my stash. Okay, so I've rethreaded with a regular 50 weight thread. So like I said, these are 10.5 by 12. I went ahead and I put fusible fleece on the exterior pieces. On the lining pieces, I don't have anything on those at all. There's nothing on the back side of those, okay? You could put interfacing like SF101 or 931 TD. If you wanted to on the back, that would be fine. I don't feel it needs it because this is just a simple, quick little bag. Then what we're gonna do is, after we've ironed that on, we're going to cut out 1-inch corners out of the bottom corners of all 4 pieces. So the 2 exteriors and the 2 linings, we're gonna cut out 1-inch squares, okay? Then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take my exterior pieces and I'm gonna line them up pretty to pretty and put a couple pins in it to sew these up, okay? All right, so I'm gonna pin the sides and then I'll pin the bottom. On the exterior, we're just gonna sew the sides and the bottom. We don't have to worry about anything else but just doing a nice 1/4 inch seam all the way around. Nothing fancy. On the lining, we're gonna leave an opening for turning it. Okay, so I've got my exterior. I went ahead and pinned it. I'm gonna go ahead and pin my interior, my lining as well, just so it's ready to go. So on my lining, I'm gonna put it pretty to pretty. And I'm gonna pin it on the sides. I always pin both ends. So I pin this end, and then this end, and then pin in between. Now, I'm gonna leave the opening for turning on the side and not on the bottom, because people look in and like, oh, look, there's where they sewed it up. But when you put it on the side, it's less noticeable. Or at least I think so. So what I'm gonna do to mark that is, here's my rule of thumb. Some people are gonna tell you 4 inches, 3 inches, whatever. I say this hand's the one's gonna turn it. This is my measuring tool. I'm just gonna lay it on top, and that's gonna give me my idea of how far I need to leave my opening. So what I like to use is red pins, and I put 2 together. That reminds me, stop. So I put 2 pins, 2 red pins together, put my hand down here, find the other side. Okay, we don't have to, it's not have to be like exact, okay? Just throw some pins in it, okay? Sometimes I think we get too worked up about being perfect and exact on everything. It doesn't need to be that hard, okay? So you can see now I've got my double red pins in there to show where to leave it open. Now go ahead and just pin the bottom and the other side. The other side, we're gonna sew it completely. So we're only gonna leave open the top on both these bag units. Okay. Then what I'm gonna do is, it really goes together pretty darn quick. So on this side, again, I'm just gonna match the corners on both pieces. Then I'll go back and I'll match up the center. Okay, so there we go. Simple, simple, lemon squeezy. Okay, so I'm gonna start with that lining because I want to have that like fresh in my brain so I don't accidentally just ignore my double pins and go around it. Okay, so I'm gonna start at the top of the bag, and I'm gonna sew, like I said, I'm gonna turn my stitch length back down to a regular 2.2 is what I like to sew at. That's me personally. Everybody has a preference. Just sew with a regular 1/4 inch. I'm sewing on my Bernina here, so I got my 37 foot on. I do a little back tack at the top. Okay, I'm going to sew down to those red pins, and then I'm going to do what a sewing friend taught me a long time ago. I call it the jelly tip. So when I get down to those pins, I'm going to stop my needle down, pull out my double red pins, and then I'm going to rotate my fabric and sew off the edge. What this does is it makes that edge turn under so much nicer when I go and I'm done with it, that I don't have to fight it when I go to sew it up. Okay, so I've sewn off the edge. I will hold it up so you can see it in a moment. Now I'm going to just scoot my machine over and start back at the other part. I'm going to sew onto the fabric. So I'm just going to sew onto my fabric. Sew back, and I do a little back tag, because this little spot's going to have a little, you know, stress on it, because I got to turn the whole bag through it. And then I rotate and go ahead and sew all the way down. When I get to the bottom, I'm not going to cut the thread. I'm just going to lift my presser foot, rotate it, and go ahead and jump across to the bottom. Okay? And sew all the way across. Quick and easy. Okay, then same thing again. I'm just going to jump across and sew up the other side. Trying to get on top. I don't want it. I want it under the presser foot. So all the way down. So if I wanted to use the glow-in-the-dark thread, I would use that for the top stitching, like I did on the handles. And then when you get to the very end, you could use some little glow-in-the-dark thread there. If you wanted to as well, you could take that glow-in-the-dark thread, and on your exterior fabric, you could do a little quilting before you piece it together. So after you put the fusible fleece on it, you could stitch around little designs if you wanted to, and do a little quilting on it. There's a lot of things you could do with that glow-in-the-dark thread. Just remember that when you use glow-in-the-dark thread, whatever you sew with it, you want to put it in the window with some sunshine before you give it to the person. Because little kids, they don't know they need to charge it first, so they get all excited and they open it up and they go flip off the light in the room they're in because they want to see it glow immediately. And then they're a little disheartened when it doesn't glow really well, unless it got enough light when you were making the project, but likely it didn't get as much as you think, because it's been spooled up in there and in a drawer or in a case and not getting as much sun. So just 30 minutes, lay it in the window so it can get a little extra sun. So I'm sewing the exterior pieces right now. I'm just going all the way around except for the top. So I'm just doing the sides and the bottom. And I'd already pinned it. Come on. So I'm just sewing these together. This bag really comes together quickly. Of course, when you do it in a video, it always takes a little bit longer because you're going through the steps and talking about them. But easily, I think these are less than half an hour to make these bags, each one. And I'm assembly lining. I've actually got 4 cut out today to make, so that I can get all the grandkids to have a new little trick-or-treat bag. Okay, so let me show you what I was talking about, how I did that stitching on and off. So you can see here, maybe you see better on this side. So you see how I sewed from the top down, and then I rotated and I stitched off. Then I jumped over here and I sewed down and across. So that way I sewed on. And when we go to turn this in a few minutes, that will actually, that edge will turn under easier and nicer because of that. It's just a little plus there. Okay, so now we need to box our corners. Those little 1-inch squares we cut out of the corners. We're just gonna put this together pretty right here, and we're gonna nest those seams. So I'm gonna push one seam one way and one seam the other way. You see how they're going opposite directions? Now, you hear me talk about this all the time. We want this very straight. It's a platypus and he is serious, okay? He is not smiling. He is serious. So straight. I got my seams going both ways, so one each way. I'm gonna use my clover forked pen to hold that seam down, so it holds the one way and then the other, and that'll make my seam go together so nice. And again, just like before, I'm gonna pin everything so it's really easy to sew. Now this seam right here, it's going this direction. So when I come up here, I'm gonna make sure that one goes the same way. That just makes the bottom of my bag lay a little nicer. It's not that hard to do that real quick. So I'm gonna grab another forked pen, put it in here. Okay, my platypus is straight. He is not smiling, he is very serious. Okay, grab this one off, same thing. Stick my finger in there, open it up, and one each way. Okay, so one seam going one way, one seam going the other way. And nest those seams into each other. Put my forked pin in there. Now, you could use smaller panels. You don't need to use the 12s, you know. You could use panels that are 9-inch squares and make cute little small bags. I mean, those would be kind of fun to put gifts inside, to make little smaller ones. Very simple to do that as well. So don't let the size of the panel inhibit you. You can play with this and do different sizes. Okay, so I'm gonna just sew across these boxed corners, 1/4-inch seam still. The seam was wanting to fold up a little bit, so just, there we go, fix it. I'm all about assembly lining it, so I take my lining piece. I don't want to waste thread in it. It actually doesn't eat the corners if you can just run something else in under the presser foot. Do a little assembly line sewing. Cut my other piece off back here. And that little jump thread, when I was sewing around the exterior, I didn't cut that when I boxed corners. It really doesn't get in the way. It just sticks right there. It's not, I don't ever find it an issue. Once in a while it'll get tucked into it and I'll see it stick out on the other side when I turn the bag and I'm like, ah, and I can just clip it real quick. But most of the time it just hangs out here. Okay, so I'm just sewing across all these, getting these sewn. All right. Okay. Oops. All right, so now I have the exterior of my bag. Okay, it's sewn up. I am going to go ahead and turn this right side out for a moment. So I got rainbows on the back, and then the cute little panel on the front from Cori Dantini. I love her stuff. I just like her artwork. Okay, you see, it's a perfect little small size, perfect to hold some candy in it. So now what we're going to do is we're going to make the space to put the handles. So we're going to take our ruler and we're going to measure over 2 1/4 inches from the side seam. Okay, so 2 1/4. This is a 2 1/2 inch wide ruler, so it's really simple. I just put the 1/4 inch mark on there, and then I'm going to put my pen in here, and there's my thing. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to measure 2 1/4 from both sides of the seam and put my pins in on all those spots. Okay, same thing on the other side. 2 1/4. Put the pin. 2 1/4 the other way. Now, this is just to make it quick because I'm already here on this side seam. I could measure from the front and flip it over, but it's really just fast to do it this way. Okay, so now you can see that my pins are in here. They line up 2 1/4, 2 1/4. Same thing in the back. 2 1/4, 2 1/4. Okay, now I'm going to take my strap. Remember, I've got my decorative stitching on here like this, so I want to put the decorative stitching toward the exterior. Okay, and I'm going to take right where that pin is, and I'm going to butt my thing up to the right hand side of it. Okay, so right there, I'm going to butt up to the I'm sorry, it's actually, when I look at the pen, it's the left hand side of the pen, but the inside toward the main part of the bag. Okay, not on the seam side. Just butt this up. Now I'm going to leave my strap sticking out about 1/4 inch. Okay, the reason why I do this is because when I go to do the top stitching, I want to catch it. I want to catch it an additional time to give it some more structure and stability to that strap, because the last thing you want to do is that strap to pull out. Okay, so because then you're going to get the bag back. Can you fix it? Can you fix it? And yes, you will, but it's much easier to just take the extra time here. So you can see I'm just sticking out just a smidge. So I line up to the side of that pin, and I scoot the pin over into it, and I'm going to leave it on both sides. Put a second pin in there. Okay, take that strap, make sure it doesn't get twisted. Again, my decker stitching is toward my exterior. Have the same amount sticking out on this side and pin it down. Okay, so put my pins in here. Okay, so there's my first piece. Now do the same thing on the back side. My decorative stitching is going toward the rainbows. Stick it out a 1/4 inch past, butt it up to the pin, transfer the pin over to the strap. Okay, on both sides. Okay, take my strap, smoothly move it over, make sure it doesn't twist up. Okay, pin that in both sides of the strap. Okay, so you see now I got my straps pinned on. Now before I go ahead and tuck this inside the lining, I'm going to tack these down. You don't have to, but again, I just add a little extra. These are little kids, and sometimes they get a little crazy with their stuff, right? So you can take off your free arm if you want to make it a little easier to get it in here. That's what that's for. And I'm just going to sew about 1/8 of an inch from the edge, just a little straight stitch across to tack it down. Nothing fancy. So I'm just going to go across. Yeah, I back tacked, it's just habit. So 1/8 of an inch from the edge of the bag, not for the edge of the strap, otherwise you won't even get it sewn on because we hung them over a 1/4 inch, remember? So 1/8 of an inch from the edge of the bag edge. You see what I mean? So it's 1/8 of an inch from the edge. Kind of see it better on that lining. Okay, I'm going to do that on all of those right here. All 4 of those. Sew those babies down. Right. Oops, my thread there. Okay. And also I only do 1/8 of an inch because I don't want to accidentally go too much and then it show when I sew my bag together and I have a stitch sticking out and you can see it. Okay, 1 more to go. All right, so just getting this tacked down. All tacked down. Okay, now I'm just going to trim my little threads here, just because they're the ones that are going to want to hang out with me and cause issues. Okay, so that's tacked on. It's just so stinking cute. Okay, now I'm going to take my lining. I'm going to stick this inside my lining, pretty to pretty. So the lining is, here's the pretty side of the lining, the pretty side of the back is going inside. Okay, tuck this all in and all the straps. Okay, now we're just going to pin this together. We're going to match up those side seams right here the same way we did it before. We push one way and one the other way. I look down, which way is this seam going? I want to make it go the same way up here. Okay, that again just makes everything lay a little flatter. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put in my fork pin just to hold that seam nice. I'm going to go do the opposite side here. I look down, check, see which way that seam's going. And the seams, oops, are just nesting together. Okay. Then I'm just going to go around and pin this. And so you just kind of give it a little pull. It's naturally going to fit just nicely. So I'm just then just kind of give it a little pull, grab it with my fingers, make sure my raw edges are matching up, and put a few pins in it. Won't need very many, just a few. Just to hold those edges together. Want to match up the raw edges. And I'm going to sew a healthy 1/4 inch, almost a 3/8 seam around this top, just to make sure I get it caught well. And like I said, we're going to go back, we top stitch, and that's going to catch that strap an extra bit in there as well. Okay, so I went ahead and I've pinned it. Now I still have my free arm off, so I can still get under here real easy. And I'm just going to sew with a 1/4 inch seam, but like I said, almost a 3/8. It's just a nice healthy 1/4 inch seam. Little back tack all the way around. If you want to, when you go over the straps, you can do a little extra back tack. You're not really going to need to, because we're going to sew the top stitching on there, so that's going to give them even more reinforcement. But sometimes I know it just makes you feel a little better. Just hit them a little more. Won't hurt them. I'm just sewing all the way around the top. I take out my pins. I don't sew my pins. There's both sides of the fence on that. Everybody has their beliefs and how they do it, and that's fine. We all have our preferences. It matters on how you were taught, how many times you've hit them. There's multiple reasons why you do things the way you do. And I'm not one here to say that one way is better than the other. I just know my preference. Whenever I do sew over a pin on accident, because I don't like to sew over them, and it bends my pin, I send a picture to my friend. She loves to sew over pins. She's like, John, I never hit my pins. I'm like, I hit my pins all the dang time. And stuff. She's like, well, you sew too small of a seam. And I'm like, you know what? Or stitch length. And I'm like, no, I don't. So when I get a good one, it bends really well, I'll send her a picture. I'm like, look what happened. And she's like, I'll buy you a pack of needles. I'm like, thanks for your support. All right, so now it's sewn all the way around the top. You can give it a quick eyeball check, make sure nothing shifted. Then we're going to turn it through that hole on the side, right here that we left open. We're just going to turn it through here. The fabulous thing is the hole's nice size because it's my hand size. And don't put stuff on the floor. And I think I just dumped my top stitch thread on the floor too. I'm going to duck down and grab that. Part of not having my little table on here, I store stuff under it. I'm sure nobody else is guilty of that, right? Okay, so now that I have that strip of fabric, now that I have that turned, I'm going to go ahead and I stick my fingers in here, and you're going to see it naturally just turns under because we did that little extra step. It naturally turns under. It's easy peasy, and I don't even have to go press it before I sew it up. And yes, I'm going to use my machine. I could do a ladder stitch, and there's lots of YouTube videos out there on how to do ladder stitches and tutorials. It's not my preference. I'm in a hurry, but I'm not hurried. That's the step I think I can skip and just do it with my machine, because I'm not at that level of perfection on how I do my bags. And I sew a lot of bags, but I 99% of the time always use the machine to sew them up. And I'm very happy with how it looks. It doesn't bother me. There's a little seam there. And I have had to open bags up. And to me, it's much easier to do that than have to take all my little hand stitching. So I just grab my seamer and go, hook. Yes, I could take my seamer out of hand stitching too. Okay, so now I'm going to tuck that lining back down inside my bag. And then what I want to do is I got some little rogue threads over here. Hello, rogue threads sticking out. So now what we're going to do is we go over and iron this. But for the sake of the video, I don't edit my videos. I just kind of go fun and raw. It gets where I can get them up much quicker. And my daughter isn't able to edit my videos like she used to, so I just go with it. So what we're going to do is you would go and iron this. Actually, I will run over there and iron real quick. You will iron this to iron that little edge down, and then we're going to top stitch with that wider thread. So I'm going to walk over here and just iron real quick. That's just so my lining doesn't stick out funny. so just give it a quick iron. I'm gonna iron over that side seam so it lays down flat. All right, all done. Got a quick little iron in there. Now I dropped thread a minute ago. Thought it was my top stitch thread. Yeah, it was. See, I have the same things happen that happened to you. Same things. Okay, so I'm gonna take that 12 weight thread again, load it in my machine. So I'll just go ahead and put this in, thread my machine with it. Press your foot always up when you thread your machine. That way it opens up the tension discs up here so that the thread can go down into them. That's really important. I cannot stress that enough, because then a lot of times people have issues and they left their presser foot down when they threaded it, and then the thread doesn't get in those tension discs. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to go around the top of it. I'm going to extend my stitch length up to that 3.0 again. Okay, and we're going to top stitch around the top. So when I do this, I'm going to actually go 1/8 of an inch first and then go another 1/8 of an inch. So it'll end up being 1/8 1/4 on there, and that just is a double stitch. It looks really nice when you do that. And how hard is it to go around twice? Not very, right? So for my 37 foot, I just line up on the inside of my foot, the inside edge, and then the exterior edge goes pretty quick. Okay, so I'm just going to go all the way around. Again, with that 3.0, and what I'm doing also is as I go around there, I'm catching those straps, and those straps are getting a little bit more secure down. I'm using a neutral thread, that way I'm not having to worry about matching, so I have just a light neutral thread in there for my interior on the lining. It's a light gold, that's what it is. I figure since it's Halloween stuff, gold kind of goes with it. My interior is a yellow color, so it works. And my thread is a yellow gold, so they blend together really nicely and I don't get polka dots. Just going all the way around. Now before I get to where I started, I go and I trim those threads off before I start the tails. The reason why I do that is otherwise a lot of times when you get back up there, it kind of jumbles up and makes a mess, and that's not what I want. Okay, little back tack. Now I'm not even gonna take the thing out. I'm just gonna scoot my my machine over, and I will go around for the second round. Okay, so I just scoot it over, and I'm doing that second round of stitching now. So the whole point of this is just to make that nice double line of stitching, and I think it just looks kind of actually more professional in a way. Look at a lot of your nicer bags and stuff, and you'll see there's 2 lines of top stitching in certain areas. So I think it just adds a nice little touch to it. Again, it's also hitting those straps again, securing them a little bit more, so that can't hurt, right? Just going all the way around. Nice having the free arm because it gives me more space to work, and I don't have to jumble the fabric around as much. Okay, little back tack when I get here, and that's it. So really simple, quick bag made out of a fun Halloween panel, and now my grandbaby has a neat little trick-or-treat bag. And the handles are perfect for them. For a little kid, they can put this totally on their shoulder and it work. For me, it's not gonna work for me to throw it over my shoulder, but it's a great handle to hold. But perfect size, it's kid size, perfect for them. I hope you love making this bag. Grab your panel, and thank you for watching. Be sure to check out me on Instagram, Facebook, Patreon and here on YouTube. Noodle sews across the board. It's simple. All right, thanks so much for watching and have a great day.